Breaking news! A new episode of Let's Be Frank starting now! Hello all! Today is another beautiful day because we get to talk about some scary, cool, and scary cool creatures. Let's not dilly-dally, let's just jump into the amazing world of the past with the monsters of the past. The big bad dino we're talking about today is the skeletosaurus. Now this guy looks interesting, doesn't he? He looks kind of like an ankylosaurus, the dinosaurs that have the big shell on their back and the giant hammer tail thing. But no, they are a bit different. So the first thing you gotta know about this guy is he looks big and tough and powerful, but really he didn't get in a lot of scraps and he tried to live a mostly peaceful life. Like me. You know, big and strong, but...
Living on scraps?
No, staying out of scraps, looking big and tough, but not wanting to be in any fights. So all those spikes it has sticking out of its head, back, all the way down to its tail, yeah, those are all its bones. I don't think we're really surprised at this point. All the dinosaur skeletons we dig up, not all I guess, but a vast majority of them have a lot of weird stuff going on. So for dinosaurs, bones sticking out of your skin isn't exactly uncommon. And you might think just by looking at this guy that he was slow and lumbering, and for the most part, you'd be right. He was. But apparently in emergency situations, this guy could actually like lift up onto its hind legs a little bit and run just on its hind legs. Can you imagine this thing doing that? Kind of like one of the Jesus lizards? Except he just run across the water. He's too heavy for that. So this guy really wasn't ginormous. He could only get up to about 4 feet tall, 15 feet long, and weighed up to 660 pounds. Now, don't get me wrong, that's very big. But like, 4 feet tall isn't the biggest in the world. Plus, there's really nothing to worry about with him. He's a plant eater. That's right, he mostly just eats leaves. Not you. Something else kind of funny about this guy is that his front legs are shorter than his hind legs, so he kind of had like a little slope effect whenever he walked, which makes sense why he could run on his hind legs. He just kind of lifts up the stumpy front legs and just dashes along. And honestly, the rest of the card kind of just repeats old information about its spikes and its rough, hard shell and the hind legs and everything. This dinosaur is kind of goofy, but there ain't too much more to say about him. So I think it's about time we get out of the past and move on to the nightmares of nature. For today's Nightmare of Nature, we're talking about a kitty cat. The Lynx, to be specific. Now, you might look at this cat and think, well, it's not one of the big ones. It's not a lion or a tiger or a jaguar or a panther. It can't be that bad. It's still cuddle-sized. Well, the lynx is one of the most superior hunters in the wild. It is incredibly efficient. This fluffy cat can take out anything from rabbits to birds to insects to even big mammals such as deer. And this guy's not huge either, like I mentioned. It generally gets up to 4.5 feet long, 2.5 feet tall, and only weighs like 85 pounds. Sure, it's a lot bigger than a house cat, but still, for being the kind of predator that it is, you'd think it'd be a lot bigger. So the bigger the creature, the bigger the paws. And the lynx has fairly big paws, and the pads on the bottom of his paws, like with most cats, helps keep it very silent while it's hunting prey. Especially when it's walking in the snow. It's almost impossible to hear. I'm definitely going to mess something up if I don't read this directly from the card, but did you know the name Lynx comes from the ancient Greek name Lynceus? Who was the sharp-eyed pilot of the ship sailed by Jason and the Argonauts. Fun facts. So I mentioned earlier that the lynx goes after birds, and that's still true, but it doesn't just sit and wait for them to land on the ground. No. While the bird is flying through the air, the lynx will time its jump. So when it's up in the air, it'll catch the bird mid-flight, bringing it back down. That's precision timing. So the lynx and the snowshoe hare actually have a really good predator-prey relationship. About every 10 years, the snowshoe hare population just explodes. And that means there was a slight decrease of the lynx population, which doesn't sound good, but with the overabundance of hare, the lynx will have plenty more food to eat, which means more of them will stay alive. That's more cats to breed, more lynx. The hares die down, the lynx go up, then the lynx die down, and the hares go up. It's a constant balance issue that never quite reaches the center, but at least there's always a plan to, deal with one or the other. And that, my friends, is the lynx. I hate to be leaving the kitty cat so soon, but I think it's time we talk about something a lot more creepy crawly and move on to the toxic terrors. For our toxic terrors this time, we are talking about jumping spiders. Now, I know a lot of people may fear spiders out there. We're still going to do an arachnophobia Weird and Wild Creatures in the future. But for now, I want to talk about this one spider in particular, because he's at the top of his game, baby. This spider has the best vision out of all the spiders, the highest IQ of all spiders. I don't even know if you could claim a spider has an IQ, but you learn something new every day. And its jump and toxic venom are just incredible. And all those amazing things wrapped in a small package that's only 0.5 inches long. Half an inch. These things are small. So this spider has 8 eyes. And believe it or not, they all do different things. The 4 on top detect movement, and they're very good at doing so. The 2 on the sides then judge distance of the spider from its prey. And finally, the 2 in the center there, they simply provide very, very detailed vision. So altogether, this spider's vision is almost as good as a human's. Unbelievable. I bet this spider's vision is actually better than some humans, because some humans have to wear glasses. Maybe like Peter Parker, you get bit by a spider, the vision gets all cleared up. That's why Peter Parker's vision got better.
I'm a Marvel nerd, you didn't know that?
Because I'm a Marvel nerd, not a spider nerd. How was I supposed to know certain spiders have better vision than some humans?
Well, what's the saying go? You can do whatever a spider does?
Yeah, and I didn't know a spider does that. How am I supposed to know what he do if I don't know what the spider do? The Chinese call these guys fly tigers because they mainly hunt flies, and their precision and deadly accuracy must remind them of a tiger. I'm not making that up. The card says that. So I mentioned earlier this guy's insane jump. Well, it can jump about 6.5 feet in one jump. That's crazy. That's taller than me. That would be the equivalent of a human jumping 2 football fields. That's disgusting. It could clear this entire room that I'm in right now in 2 jumps. And it's a decently sized room. Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable. So since we're on the subject of jump, what this spider does to produce such results when it comes to jumping is it pumps this fluid into its hind legs, and then the jumping legs. It has 8 of them, so I imagine there's more than just 2. it pumps fluid into its legs, and then the legs act as some sort of hydraulic spring that just launches the spider at high speeds totally across the room. I didn't want to embarrass myself and try to pronounce this. The fluid. The fluid has a name, and it's pronounced Hymolymph. Hymolymph. Hymolymph.
I'm gonna guess it's hemolymph.
It's H-A-E.
Yes, hemolymph. It's for blood.
Give it. Hemolymph. I got that on my own. I'm gonna cut out your voice. They'll never know. And before we go, I just want to mention most male jumping spiders actually have a lot of bright colors on them. It helps warn predators that they are poisonous, and it also helps attract mates. Let's stop talking about spiders. I'm sure I already scared all the arachnophobes away. And let's move on now to the monsters of the deep. And so we shall be talking about the pineapple fish. I bet you can already guess why it's called that. Its scales look like that of the outside of a pineapple. This fish just looks neat. There's not too much to say about it, but I'm gonna try my best. You notice that red bit around its mouth? Well, that is an organ, apparently, that can change colors to attract a mate. And that's nice, but sometimes it can also confuse its prey, such as shrimp. And if they accidentally wander a little too close to the pineapple fish, it's lights out for that there shrimp.
Do you know what they're called? Those pretty lights?
What are they called?
They're called photophores.
Photophores?
It's a form of bioluminescence.
I'm dating a marine biologist. Well, she didn't try to be a marine biologist, but it just kind of happened, right, Katrina?
Yeah. By the way, it's also a bariciformes, which means it's benthic.
What does that mean?
It lives deep in the ocean. That's why it has photophores in the first place.
That must be why on the back of the card, I'm just reading straight off the card here, guys. I'm sorry. I like to memorize things like as I go, so it looks better than me just reading the whole time. But I mean, let's just flip to the back of the card so soon. On the back of the card, I'll be in the way. You can see they're actually showing the this guy, the viper fish. They're actually showing a different creature on the back, which is cool. And it says the pineapple fish isn't the only fish that glows in the dark. This trick, called bioluminescence, is used by several fish that live thousands of feet below the surface, where sunlight doesn't penetrate. Predators like the viperfish dangle lighted lures in front of their mouths. When other fish swim close to investigate, the viperfish snaps its jaws shut and devours its victims. Brutal! So sometimes the pineapple fish is actually referred to as the pine cone fish or the night fish due to its armored exterior. But I'm sure if I picked this fish up, grabbed this 10-inch fish in my bare hands, I could probably still crush it to death. Sorry, that wasn't invasive thoughts. Anyway, I'm glad Katrina has some cool information for us because there's not too much to talk about this fish. Just about how its scales are hard and it lives deep in the water in caves. So thank you, Katrina, for your marine biologist information. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the tiny terrors. So for today's ultra creepy crawly, we're talking about the Death Watch beetle. Sounds pretty scary, right? Well, back in the day, people used to think that this beetle, seeing it, kind of let you know that the end was near. And let me tell you why. This beetle primarily lives in wood. It eats wood, it makes its home in wood. So whenever it invaded somebody's house, and there was a lot of them, naturally, as nature dictates, it would start looking for a mate. And in order to attract a mate, and I'm not kidding, it would bang its head against the wall, and the mate would know to follow the sound and get to the beetle. But people like hundreds of years ago assumed when they heard this sound like a ticking clock out of nowhere that their time was drawing near. So you can actually find these guys out in the woodlands of North America and Europe. And remember how small the jumping spider was? Well, this guy's like 0.1 inch smaller. It's 0.4 inches long. And it can live for 1 to 12 years, depending on conditions, according to the card. That's such a big gap. Anything can live for 1 to 12 years. Right? I mean, I don't know, that doesn't make much sense, but you get what I mean, right? That just, come on. Depending on what conditions? I want to know the conditions. So, obviously, these things eat exclusively wood. So, if you build a house with infested wood, it could cause structural collapse. Or maybe a bookshelf. These Death Watch beetles will eat right through the books. So be very careful if you value your books. So female Death Watch beetles, they lay about 50 to 100 eggs at a time. And when the eggs finally hatch and the larvae pop out, they don't just start mindlessly eating wood and digging around. They actually search for soft spots in the wood to easily dig in, making it a little nicer on themselves. Okay, now it makes sense. The 1 to 12 years thing. If a Death Watch beetle larvae lives in a warm area with lots of wood, they can reach adulthood in like a year. But if it's a colder area, it's gonna take them a lot longer to mature. Imagine being like a baby for 12 years because you're in a cold climate. Well, that's the Death Watch beetle for you. And it can take a lot longer for them to fully mature. Well, that's just about all there is to say about the Death Watch beetle. So let's go ahead next to the strange wonders. So, definitely a very strange wonder is the frigate bird. Just look at that sack. It has a purpose though. The frigate birds inflate the big red sack full of air on the front of their body whenever they want to attract a mate. And not only that, but they use their beaks to like pound on it to create a drum-like noise, which also attracts females. Do females not have those? Only the males have. Oh, see, male birds get all the fun. You could say. Only the males have the sack.
Boo.
Don't you boo me!
By the way, that sack has a name. It's called a gular pouch.
A gular pouch?
G-U-L-A-R. Gular pouch.
Huh.
Pelicans have the same thing. They're related.
Oh, but pelicans just have their big giant mouth flap.
That's a gular pouch. This is
a gular pouch.
The only difference is that pelicans use it to hold
food.
They use it to scoop. The frigate birds actually inflate them.
Full of air.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. And those black dots you see on the sack, those are actually still some of its feathers. Fun fact. So these things can get up to 4 feet long with a wingspan of 8 feet. These are some big birds. Yet they only weigh like 3.5 pounds. I guess it's because their bones are so light and full of nothing. That's why they can fly, you know. Birds' bones are hollow. There's a lot of different places it can live, so I'm just going to read them. It can live in coastal areas near Africa, southern Asia, northern Australia, the southern United States, and northern South America. You can basically find these things near every continent of the world. So these frigate birds were actually named after the type of boat pirates would use, the frigate. And similarly to pirates, these birds not only hunt their own fish and crabs and squid and whatnot, but if another frigate bird got some fish in its talons, I keep saying frigate, I say frigate bird way too much now. It's gonna start sounding weird. Another frigate bird will attack the original frigate bird to get the food away from the frigate bird. So when searching for its own fish and not stealing from others, the frigate bird will follow packs of dolphins. And once the feeding frenzy begins and the fish start jumping all over the place, the frigate birds will swoop down and catch fish that have been jumping into the air. But they do not like getting wet, so they will not dive into the water to get fish themselves like other birds do, like pelicans. Or seagulls? Seagulls don't mind getting wet, at least. And finally, I just want to mention, these birds are very big and they're very fast. They can reach speeds of up to 30 miles per hour and use that forked tail of theirs to help adjust direction. Like they can turn on a dime. Pretty crazy. Yes, Katrina, you had a bit more info for us.
Well, they have the largest wing length to body weight ratio of any bird.
Really?
So, for as little as they weigh, they do have the single largest wingspan in relation to that.
How interesting.
That's why they're so fast. Also, frigates were known to be a very fast type of ship. That's another reason for the name.
Makes sense.
Also, the people of Rapa Nui on Easter
Wow.
Island,
Easter Island, okay.
they actually worshipped or venerated the frigate bird.
Is that so?
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't be me. I don't know if I could worship something with such a big... Anyway, moving on to our final destination for the day. The monsters of the mind. I hope you've all caught up on your summer reading, because today our monster of the mind are the beast people. Now you may be thinking, summer reading, what the heck are you talking about? Who has ever heard of the book The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells? Not this guy. I know of the book and what he did, mainly from The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror spinoff, but you know, the point still stands that beast people were a creation from that book. So this Dr. Moreau guy was truly a mad scientist. He wanted, for some reason, again, haven't read the book, to change and alter these animals to be able to walk upright like humans. He would straighten out their hind legs and put their spine upright so they could accommodate a more human shape. And these beast people were covered in all kinds of scars from all the animal and human parts that were sewn together. Let's see here. In H.G. Wells' novel, Dr. Moreau had one goal when he began experimenting on animals: to free them of their beastly nature and make them as intelligent as humans. Alterations were made to the beast's brain so they could think logically and even speak. The creatures were able to obey orders and even play games like chess, but they never lost their animal instincts. Disagreements with them could easily get violent. This actually sounds interesting, but I know I'd never make it through the book. Apparently, The Island of Dr. Moreau has been made into a movie 3 times, with Val Kilmer playing Moreau's faithful assistant in 1996, which is the most recent iteration of the movies, and I may just have to check that out. Of course, as with all experiments such as this, they never go as the original mad scientist plans, and the beast people eventually lost all of their human characteristics and reverted back to purely animal instincts and attacked everything around them. What do you expect? So apparently Dr. Moreau never used anesthetic while working on these creatures, so they felt every bit of the pain. And while working on one particular puma experiment, it used its intense strength to break the restraints and run away. Dr. Moreau ran after it with a pistol, intending to kill it, but a fierce battle ensued instead. The card doesn't say who won the battle.
They both mutually ended each other's lives. Neither won.
Classic. It's the classic anime, we both punch each other at the same time and knock each other out thing. Oh, anyway, let's forget all these OSHA violations. What is it? What is it? The Geneva Code that you violate when you do something bad doctorally? Huh? It's either the OSHA violation or the Geneva Convention.
That's for warfare, dear.
Oh. This is where we're ending today's episode. The last word being warfare. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you give it a like and subscribe if you have not already. Follow my Instagram and Facebook, Let's Be Frank 2020, and follow my TikTok, at Let's Be Frank TikTok. With all that being said, this green screen blocks the air conditioning vent, and I am very, very hot. Until next time!